Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining in for the today's webinar. The overall objective of today's webinar is to give an understanding of what are various considerations that Indian investors and businesses have to bear in mind if they want to venture into UAE jurisdiction. So, our theme is setting up and doing business in India. Before we kickstart with the agenda and the contents that we want to cover in today's session, let me briefly introduce today's session speakers. Myself, Pranit Narahari, I lead corporate tax and transpricing in SBC. For the last 10 years, I've been doing cross-border transpricing, international taxation, and structuring. Prior to SBC, I was associated with Big Four. My experience and expertise include helping multinationals as well as SMEs across wide spectrum of industry with special overall experience in technology, real estate, financial, and consumer sectors. I'm today joined by Mr. Vamsi. Vamsi is based out of UAE. For the last decade, he has been helping a lot of businesses to set up a shop in UAE, uh, providing hand-holding right from entity incorporation, obtaining various licenses, helping them with quarterly, half-yearly, and yearly compliances, and taking care of overall tax and regulatory aspects for the UAE businesses. Vamsi is a business setup manager in Get Company. That's a brief introduction of the speakers. Coming to the three entities that you are seeing on screen, all Spectrum, Get Company, and SBC are part of same group. For independency and expertise purposes, we have separate entities for each of the service offering. Uh, Spectrum Auditing and Accounting has been there in UAE for the last 10 years. It is headed by Mr. Balram Vuchidi, who has 2 decades of experience in audit, accounting, and compliance aspects. Spectrum currently has a 30 people team in UAE and based out of Karama. So just to sum up, Spectrum Auditing takes care of end-to-end auditing, accounting, and regulatory compliances for businesses in the UAE. Coming to Get Company, it's a specialized firm only assisting businesses for end-to-end incorporations and business setup in terms of obtaining various licenses and registrations that are required in the UAE to get going. Uh, the lead manager in Get Company is Mr. Vamsi, who has joined us in today's session. And then coming to SBC, XBC is a boutique tax firm. It is headquartered out of Hyderabad, India. There are currently 250 people in India, and we have a subsidiary in UAE as well. SBC core expertise lies in overall corporate tax, transpricing, and structuring. It is founded and head by Mr. Mitlesh, supported by the core team who are mostly Big Four alumni. So that's a brief introduction of ourselves and the entities which are the current knowledge partners of today's session. Uh, Before we start today's session, the overall idea is to let you know as to what are various types of entity structures which are possible in UAE. Are there any location specific advantages which are available in terms of tax incentives or no tax regions within UAE? And what is the documentation or the criterias which are required to invest into UAE and get the required registrations and licenses. Once we obtain those required licenses, what are the various compliances which are there in UAE and how different are they from India? Because the essence of today's session is to mostly cover from UAE India corridor, so we'll cover those aspects, and we'll also touch upon corporate tax aspects in terms of repatriations back to India, and then what are the various tax considerations in the hands of corporates and investors alike. To get started, why UAE has been preferred destination for doing businesses for not only individual promoters and investors, but also multinationals. If you see the group structures of any M&E, you will have one entity in UAE for business as well as tax reasons. Here in the slides, we have summed up key considerations. While these are quite general, we just want to stress each upon them because Vamsi has been there in UAE for almost a decade. He has been speaking to a lot of investors and professionals as well as employees while assisting them with business setup or visa or employee permits. So while we speak to them, we kind of understand what are the main criteria that are running through their mind while setting up the business in UAE. So we have summed up these considerations here. So just to start with the first one, which is strategic location. Mm, Geographically, UAE is located well between Europe and APAC and Africa, making it a central hub for doing an international trade with all these jurisdictions. Unlike other regions which are emerging, but strategically, geographically, UAE is better positioned, and with good state of the art infrastructure and airport facilities, it will be easy for travels for the investors and employees in the UAE. Coming to political and economic stability, as you are aware, unlike other democratic regions, UAE has a monarch rule, so making it quite concrete and bringing that additional security in the minds of investors and businesses because it has a stable government as well as stable revenue streams. So there is no macro, no unforeseen situations which is influenced by political or economic instability that investors have to have a foresight of. And then world class infrastructure, as you see everywhere. The UAE has world class infrastructure in terms of healthcare, medical, business hubs, free zones, and all that. So, which aids all the businesses to, or which lures all the businesses to set up a shop in the UAE. And then in innovation and technology, earlier the UAE's mainstream of revenue was oil and hydrocarbons, but now there has been, for the last 10-15 years, there has been strategic shift in terms of economic stability and revenue streams, wherein the focus has been more of technology, innovation, tourism. So wherever industries have these cutting edge technologies, UAE is a go-to destination to try and test their solutions or products. Then coming to regulations, in this session, we'll try to cover overall compliances or laws which are there in UAE and try to compare it with India. How different are they, or how easy or complex are they in terms of compliance and the government scrutiny? And then tax advantages. While over last 5 years, UAE has implemented all sorts of regulations to make it globally transparent economy. We'll touch upon how these regulations warrant compliances from the businesses. And then diversification of economy. One thing we have observed is UAE has good strength of luring expats from other jurisdictions, as I said, because of world-class facilities. So, be it investors, employees, professionals, or business prospects, UAE is very open in terms of different ethnicities and cultures. So, if you want to set up a headquarter or the main entity, parent entity in UAE, so you can bring in talent from all your jurisdictions because it's a good centralized location which offers end-to-end facilities. And then free zones, like in India, how we had special economic zones and gift cities recently. UAE also has location-specific advantages in terms of having free zones in all the Emirates. which offer tax incentives and other incentives subject to fulfilling of certain conditions. And coming to quality of life, as I said, uh, be it medical, education, transport, airports, state-of-the-art facilities are all available in UAE, thereby making it easy for professionals to venture into UAE and get going. Uh, one aspect or one complaint which we keep hearing about is the climate thing. But having been in UAE for last 3 years, what I observed is I think almost 4 to 5 months the climate is good. At the other time, while it's hot and humid, but UAE has a lot of facilities that even in public places you have ACs and all that, and there is a lot of technology usage in terms of cloud seeding and all that. So basically, netting off whatever complaints that you have in terms of climate and all. So it's like any other destination to do business or to do employment. So these are the overall factors which run through the mind of investors or businesses, not only business and tax objectives, but in general objectives that every company or professional think through while getting into UAE. Now, let's kickstart by understanding what is the end-to-end process of setting up a business in UAE, right from ideation to obtaining licenses. I will let Vamsi to take us through the business setup process.
Thanks, Pranesh. Thanks for the introduction. Uh, we'll discuss the business setup process in steps. First one is business activity. So choosing the business activity is it's a crucial point here. Here in UAE, business registration governed by the economic department in mainland and respective free zone authorities in free zones. Authorities predefined most of the business activities. From them, we have to choose a suitable business activity as per our business plan. And the legal structure, as like in India, here also we have different legal structures: sole proprietorship, LLC, single person, LLC, uh, public shareholding company, private shareholding company, and civil company. So most common legal structure is LLC here because we'll have limited liability and 100% expat holding. As a outside investor, they can hold 100% without any local agent, subject to some conditions based on the activity and the trade name approval. So, since you have to, uh, since you plan to set up a company in UAE, you need to choose a trade name as per the rules of the government in UAE. First of all, uniqueness. Choose the name which is not already in use, and relevance. Make sure the name reflects your business activity, and appropriateness. Avoid anything offensive or against cultural norms, and restricted terms. If any restricted terms as per the law, so that it's not allowed to take as a company name. And full names. If you're using personal names, include full name as a legal name, and avoid abbreviations. Generally, name should be clear and full. Uh, Abbreviations are not allowed. And the language. So most of the preferred languages are up there. It is not mandatory, but if you want to choose English name, there will be a separate fees for the foreign name. Uh, Slightly, it will increase your license cost. After getting the name, you have to apply for the initial approval. First, we need to arrange the business concept approval and the name approval and then activity approval and the legal structure confirmation and ownership structure and location specific. And after getting the initial approval, we have to prepare the legal documentation like memorandum and local service agent agreement if required, if you want to go with a service agent. And to open a company in UAE, you should have a tenancy contract in a specific location where you want to open, and initial approval document in the last step we have taken, and trade name reservation that we already discussed before. Partnership agreement, if we have any partnership agreement with other companies or other persons, and passport copies and visa copies. Since we are new to UAE, you can apply with your visit visa also, and NOCs if required, and power of attorney. If you want to give any power of attorney to other person to operate your business on behalf of you, you can take power of attorney also. And the next step is apply for the business license. After arranging all these documents, you can apply for the business license. So it will take 2 to 3 working days in mainland. In some free zones, you will get in 1 or 2 days, subject to business activities which you choose. And after getting the business license, you can take establishment card and immigration. You can open an immigration file for a visa application, and you can apply for the labor related approvals to get the visas for your employees. Once you get the visas, you can open your bank account and you can start your business activities. After getting all these approvals, you can operate your business in UAE without any hazards. There are some compliances need to be followed in tax point of view. If you cross 375,000 AED in last 12 months, you have to apply for VAT registration. Once you get the registration, you need to file the VAT returns every quarter as per the uh, filing period given by the Federal Tax Authority. And to follow these compliances, you need to maintain the books of accounts, ensure all the compliances followed by the company, and you can operate without any hazards. And tax point of view, Mr. Prant, I let Mr. Prant to discuss more about the tax.
Thanks, Mohammed.
tax.
See, before I explain the tax considerations, I have two questions here. First of all, thank you for going step by step and even explaining the minute details for setting up of business. My first question is, say if I've done the required homework in terms of the shareholding structure, the business activity, some names that I want to have, and the investments and repatriations. See, I'm speaking from a as a tax consultant because I've seen you once we do the structuring and we connect the client with you for entity setup and all. So, what is the overall timeline from step 1 to step 11 that takes for entity setup to get going in UAE? That is my first question. Yeah.
Yeah, it will not take much time actually. It will be depends upon the activity of the business you
Hmm.
chosen.
Hmm.
In general terms, it will take 3 to 5 working days for
Oh,
mainland company. In some free zones, you can open the company in 3 working days
that's
to
good.
get the license of the company.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's quite quick and fast. Yeah.
yeah,
My second question is, I see there are a lot of steps involved in terms of documentation and obtaining licenses and registrations. How much of this is actually automated, and how much of is a physical steps on you where you have to go and liaison with the government offices and departments?
yeah. Most of the applications through online only.
Okay.
But in mainland cases, we need to visit Department of Economic Development, and we need to submit all the documents
Hmm.
in mainland license. In free zone license, yeah, you can do online itself.
Understood.
Yeah.
So here I can see some aspects where we can discuss in detail in terms of what are the available legal structures, what are types of visas, What are types of registrations which are required? How much is it voluntary and mandatory? And what are the overall compliances to be in compliance with the all regulations? Uh, let's start with the first one, which is the legal structures or forms which are available in UAE. See, in India, like any other jurisdiction, we have companies set up in terms of private and public company, and then we have limited liability partnerships, LLPs, and then we have unregulated or less regulated legal structures in terms of sole proprietorship and partnership. Okay. So, are there similar legal forms in UAE? How are they in UAE? If you can throw some light on this, once it will be helpful.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, more or less, the legal entities are same like in India. Here we have limited liability company. Limited liability companies will be liability will be limited to the company itself. Liability will not pass to the members or shareholders. To open a limited liability company, we need at least two shareholders for LLC. We have LLC single person company also. Single person can also open a LLC company. And we have civil company. Typical a civil company will open for professional licenses. And we have public giant stock company, and we have private joint stock company, and we have offshore entities, and we have free zone entities, and like in India we have proprietorship also. Yeah, sole proprietary. Yeah,
What about partnership firms? Are they allowed in UAE or not?
yeah, there is partnership entities, but it's for locals only, not for the expats.
Okay.
Yeah,
And what is the most preferred legal form in terms of ease of compliance and also obtaining required licenses and registrations? While business objective is one of the aspect, but what is the go-to legal form in UAE based on your experience?
yeah, LLC will be most preferred option.
Okay.
If you go with a civil company, local agent will be required, and if you go with sole establishment also, local agent will be required. So most of the people, they don't prefer other persons to come into their business, right? So that is why people will prefer.
Thank you, Vamsi. Now let's understand more from a location standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, India, we have a free zone kind of concept in terms of special economic zone or gift cities. While all of us are aware that even UAE has a similar matrix, what are the key differences that the investors or businesses have to bear in mind when they want to set up a entity in free zone or mainland? And then there is also offshore company option. If you can throw light on what are the major differences, and then also touch upon what is this offshore company thing when it is relevant.
As we know, there are three types of options available now. One is mainland, one is free zone, and offshore. So as discussed before, uh, there are business activities are limited to the free zones. In mainland, there is no limitation to choose the business activity. In offshore, there are few activities available for offshore entities. So mainly for asset holding and holding company activities will support in offshore companies. And ownership point of view, in free zone companies we can hold 100% uh, as an expert.
Hmm.
In mainland also we can hold 100% most of the activities. Only few activities we need to have a local agent. Otherwise, most of the activities we can hold 100%. In offshore, it's a 100% foreign entity only. Yeah.
Okay.
In legal structure, uh, in free zones, we'll have free zone establishment, free zone company, and limited liability company also. In mainland, we have other options like LLC, sole establishment, civil company, and LLC, single person company. And in offshore, it is limited. It's a free zone offshore entity only.
Yes.
Yeah. In office space point of view, we need to have an office space in free zones. In most of the free zones, they'll give a flexi desk option. which is cost effective. They will give a lease agreement without giving any space to open a license. In mainland, we need to have an office. There is called virtual office option also. So you can take a virtual office for the license purpose itself. You don't have any private office. Yeah. In offshore entities, there is no physical office presence required. It is just offshore entity. You can open through agent. The cost point of view, setting up a free zone entity cost will be less, and in some free zones, like designated or fenced free zones, the cost will be more in free zones. But most of the free zones, it will be less compared to mainland. Yeah, in mainland, it will be moderate, and operational costs and leasing options will be differ with their requirements. In offshore entity, generally it will be less compared to these two other options. Um, and visa eligibility, if you discuss about visa eligibility, in free zones, we have limitations in visa applications. You'll get limited visas based on your license application. And in mainland, there is no limitation on visas. You can, as long as you get the approval, you can apply for the visas as per your requirement. In offshore entity, you will not get any visas because it's outside UAE entity. It will be treated as offshore outside UAE entity. And imports exports duties. Uh, no import export duties within free zone. If you want to do, I mean, if you move goods from free zone to mainland, you need to pay custom duties. It will be less and compared to other areas. And import export duties will be applicable in mainland. Offshore entity, you will not allowed to do business within UAE. So no custom will. If you want to talk about taxation, it will better to talk. Better to hear from Mr. Prime.
Hey,
Yeah.
before I touch upon what are various tax considerations. One thing that I hear from many is whether various tax regimes which are introduced over time in UAE are a boon or a win, are they positively or negatively impacting the UAE jurisdiction? So prior to 5 years, UAE was seen as a wholly tax haven jurisdiction. But the main reason for introduction of various tax legislations is not to get money from the businesses or the people who are there in UAE, because UAE has been cash-rich economy because they have natural resources in terms of oil reserves. The main reason for introduction of all these regimes is to uh, portray UA as a transparent as well as a globally compliant economy and jurisdiction. That's the reason first in 2017 they've introduced excise, and then 18 VAT came into picture, which is value added tax. And then in 2019 we had economic substance regulations, and also country by country reporting regulations. And then last year there had been a landmark introduction of the corporate tax regime, which has got the eyes and excitement of the businesses and professionals alike. So if you see, all these are the UAE government wants the businesses to be compliant with this, but they are not watertight or very highly vigilant, or they are not highly litigated by the UAE government when compared to all the developing or emerging countries. Say, since we are talking about India UAE corridor, in India we have similar kind of legislations for each of the aspect. But since ours is more evolved in terms of all these regulatory and tax regulations, we see a lot of litigation and disputes, which is not often seen in UA jurisdiction. So the overall objective is to portray UA as a globally compliant jurisdictions, so that all of you might be hearing about global minimum tax. which is part of BEPS initiative, which is base erosion and profit shifting initiative, whose main objective is to avoid low or no tax kind of jurisdiction. So earlier UAE was at 0% corporate tax. Now they have brought in 9%, and eventually for large businesses it will be 15% once they align with the BEPS actions. Okay, all these are only making UAE as a concrete jurisdiction and transparent jurisdiction, because all these regulations are introduced at right time and phase. So you don't have to worry about what's next, because all the aspects which are minimum laws and regulations are introduced, and things have got going. So that's the overall background of these laws and regulations. Coming specifically about talking about two main tax legislations, which is direct tax and indirect tax. We have value added tax in UAE, just like how we have GST in India. The rates are nominal. There it's 5% in UAE, and compared to 18% and other higher rates in India. That's one thing, and it's not applicable in all cases, because we have certain location specific exemptions for free zones or designated zones. And then we have corporate tax. Again, speaking about corporate tax, while the entire regime has been introduced, which has converted the status of no tax to tax jurisdiction, but still, when compared with all other jurisdictions where these multinationals and businesses want to venture, be it Singapore, Netherlands, India, we see that UAE has very low corporate tax rate in terms of 9%, even if you compare with the other JCC nationals like which are there, which are higher than 9%. So overall, while there are various laws and regulations compared to other jurisdictions as on date, these are still at lower bare minimum level, and further, these are only strengthening UAE economy as a compliant jurisdiction, and will not foresee any dramatic introductions or shifts in coming future, because all the direct taxes, indirect taxes, substance regulations, overall BEPS minimum standards are already implemented, and they are being taken care by businesses and professionals smoothly. So that's a broad understanding of tax considerations. We'll discuss in detail in the ensuing slides on what are the tax rates which are applicable for a free zone and mainland entity. So one thing that everyone has to be aware of here is, just because you set up a shop in a free zone, it doesn't mean that by default you will get a 0% beneficial corporate tax rate. There are certain conditions which each of the businesses or the entities have to fulfill wherever they're planning to set up a shop in free zone, to in order to claim that 0% relief. See, there are exhaustive guidelines and regulations, but it's kind of a one-time exercise. Once you clearly map the dots and ensure that as long as you're fulfilling those conditions, then you will continue to get the 0% relief. So the main aspects or conditions for the free zone eligibility are: one, you should have adequate substance in free zone, meaning you can't have a sham office. You should actually have the people expenses to establish that there is some substance in free zone for the relative business activity that they are undertaking. And then there are certain set of activities which are listed, which will only qualify for the free zone eligibility, and rest of the activities will be taxed at 9%. And then you have other tax and audit requirements in terms of a transfer pricing compliance for any related party transactions, meaning they have to be undertaken at arm's length or market value, so that there is no profit shifting between the tax paying and no tax paying locations. And then mandatory audit is one thing, and most of the free zone requires this even prior to the introduction of corporate tax regime. And coming to the activities which qualify for free zone, they have basketed the activities into qualifying and excluded activities. Most of the activities are covered in the qualifying activities, unless where there is extra lens or radar is required, they have put it under excluded activities, which is mostly to do with financial and immovable properties kind of thing. So these are the list of qualifying activities. So one of the important aspect that every investor or businesses have to bear in mind while setting up a free zone entity is to undertake an impact assessment or 0% corporate tax eligibility assessment before they get going, because it's not a by default kind of scenario wherein they get 0%. So this is to touch upon the activities which are eligible for 0%. Now, since we got a broad idea as to what are the steps which are involved in setting up an entity, and also what are the locations and legal forms, you can once you can throw light on uh, how many free zones are there in UAE and how to select which free zone to go for from a business standpoint.
We have more than 40 free zones in UAE. Yeah, most of the free zones industry specific. For example, if you take DMCC, that is commodity specific gold and diamonds and precious metals. And if you take a DOBSA, it is more into aviation, logistics, and IT and electronics. If you take the Jebel Ali Free Zone, it is more on logistics and manufacturing. Likewise, we each emirate we have different free zones based on the industry specific and business specific. In free zones, we have designated free zones and normal free zones. Designated free zones are mainly custom fenced free zones. If you want to bring goods from the those designated free zones to mainland, we need to approach customs and we need to pay up applicable duties or charges in customs, and you can bring the goods to the mainland. Some free zones are normal free zones. You can do business free zones to mainland, mainland to free zone, and those are designated free zones. Those are mainly we have advantage in taxes. Like in designated free zone, if you have a company, if you do business from designated zone to outside UAE, will be treated as outside the scope. If you do the business with mainland, and it will be treated as outside the scope for the designated zone company, and for the mainland company, it will be treated as an import, as if you are importing goods from outside UAE. Likewise, we have benefits for the designated free zone companies. In normal free zones, it will be treated as normal free zones only. Yeah.
Understood. Thanks, Vamsi. So, how the way I can sum up this is first, based on your business activity, you should select the free zone, and also which emirate you want to get into will also plays a role. If you want to set up in Dubai, then based on your industry, you have to you see which is a go-to free zone. I think that's way to sum this up. Now, let's understand. In India, we have direct tax, indirect tax, audit, accounting, the corporate filings, labor laws. There are a hell of a lot of regulations that we have to comply with. If you can throw light on what are broad or what are overall regulations or compliances in UAE that businesses have to take care on day-to-day or yearly basis in UAE.
Yeah. In this case, actually, UAE has a good advantage in compliance with this. We have less taxes and less compliances compared to other countries. For example, if you take indirect tax, we have VAT and excise. And VAT, it's only 0% and 5%. We have standard rate. There is no different rates and there is no complication. As we discussed before, if you have presence in designated free zone, that VAT also not applicable.
Hmm.
So this kind of benefits we have in UAE. If you talk about corporate tax, yeah, uh, in 2024 they implemented corporate tax, and it's very minimal. It's 9%, whereas other countries having 20 to 30% as tax rates. And we have other compliances like ESR, AML, ESR. To discuss about ESR, it is limited to some relevant activities like holding company, banking, headquarter business, insurance, investment, shipping, and IP businesses. And AML, it is specific to the active transaction. Whenever the transactions happen, that time we need to report to the authorities. Yeah, and other compliances are minimal. So these are the main
I think,
compliances.
yeah, this clearly draws out differences between various regulations which are there in UAE and India. Just one thing which we want to give as a radar is we are not saying that the regulations or compliances in UAE are very easy or you have to take it for granted. You have to obviously reach out to expert consultants and professionals who can take care of these minimum compliances or regulations which are there in UAE. But if you have to compare it with India, which has additional layer of compliances and regulations, say be it the labor laws or the additional disclosure or audit requirements. In UAE, these things are on a little lighter note, little less or complex kind of thing when compared to India. One another important thing is the audit and accounting requirement. Vamsi, is there any threshold criteria or anything as of that sort wherein the businesses have to maintain proper accounts, bookkeeping, and also have their financials audited, uh, whatever form of entity they're planning to set up? Can throw some light on accounting and audit requirements in UAE.
Yeah. Before taxation, there is no mandatory requirement to maintain the books of accounts. But after implementing this VAT and corporate tax, VAT is applicable whoever exceeds 375,000 taxable transactions in UAE. So they have to maintain the books as per the VAT law. So who are applicable for the VAT, they mandatorily they have to maintain the books of accounts, and there is no mandatory requirement of audit. But certain free zones they require audit report while they're renewing their licenses. So most of the free zones they'll ask audit report while renewing their licenses. And as per the corporate tax, yeah, there is new requirement. Whoever exceeds 50 million turnover, they need to get the books to be audited.
Thanks, Vamsi, for touching upon accounting and bookkeeping aspect as well. Now, let's understand what are options which are available to Indian corporates to set up their presence in UAE. These are almost same in all the jurisdictions wherever you want to venture into. First option is set up a separate legal entity. Now, once you decide that you want to set up a legal entity, the other thing or other criteria you have to decide is whether to have the main individuals or promoters or shareholders or any other holding entity or any intermediate entity as a shareholder, which is nothing but a corporate holding structure. So there are two options once you want to or plan to set up an entity in UAE. Either you can have the shareholding by individuals or shareholding by corporate structure. And then we have other option, which is to set up a branch in the UAE. Strictly speaking, from overall tax consideration standpoint, keeping aside the business objective, it is always good to have a separate legal entity to avoid a lot of other tax complications instead of a branch, which is somewhere not close to a legal setup. And the way you have to decide on what type of structure you want to have, there are a lot of considerations which have to be evaluated. Cost benefit analysis has to be undertaken, and the main thing is to it has to meet the business objectives as well. If it is a global or multinational, obviously it will flow through a proper corporate holding structure. If it is an individual promoter or investor, then you can that individual can directly hold the UAE entity. Here I have one question. Is there any difficulty in terms of timelines or additional documentation if the shareholder is individual versus if the shareholder is a corporate?
Definitely, if you choose a corporate shareholder, so we need to get all the documents of the company attested by the UAE Embassy and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in UAE. It will take around 30 to 45 days to get all the documents attested, and the cost will also be more compared to individuals. After getting all the documents attested, these documents need to be sent to UAE and will get attested in MOFA also there in UAE. That also involves some cost. And with those documents, we can start the process of applying the business license. If you choose an individual as a shareholder, so directly with passport and visa copy, you can start the application, business application. So here, in this, we can avoid we can reduce the cost of attestation and the timing for the attestation period.
Understood.
Yeah.
So overall, if it is an individual shareholding, it is a little quicker and less documentation, but again, it depends on the ultimate objective of businesses.
Yeah.
Understood. Now, from investors or employee standpoint, if you can just broadly touch upon what are visas that are available for investors or employees to get start working in UAE.
Yeah. So we have short-term stay visas and residence visas. So in short-term stay visas, like visit visas, generally in UAE, you'll get a visit visa in 2 to 3 business working days, business days.
Yeah.
And to apply visa, you just
So I'll just continue on that. I think uh, for doing employment, you should have a residence visa, and then golden visa is more applicable for investors, wherein they invest certain amount of money which meets the threshold criteria. So these are broad visa options which are available to get going in UAE. Then coming to one of the important aspect which I want to touch upon is the investment and repatriation option from India and back to India. Broadly, like anywhere, you have two investment options. One is either you can do a equity funding or a debt funding. Now, can you pump in whatever amounts or volumes you want to into UAE? No. From India standpoint, there are foreign exchange regulations which are applicable, wherein they place certain thresholds or caps on how much you can pump in form of debt and equity. This broadly captures those specific. I don't want to get into specifics. One thing that all the investors and businesses have to be aware is that there are certain caps and compliances you have to comply with before pumping into money into UAE businesses, and accordingly plan their initial capex and working capital needs for initial years. So these are broad investment options or compliances that businesses have to bear in mind. Now coming to repatriation options. See, once you set up the entity in UAE, take care of overall compliances. The other thing that from a investor or business standpoint is how much you can repatriate or extract back from UAE into India. Again, these things like any other jurisdictions, you have after tax repatriation options and pre-tax options, which are expenses or tax deductible options. You have dividend, and then you have expenses in terms of technical fee or royalty, and then you have interest on any debt fundings. One major advantage for with UAE jurisdiction is there is 0% withholding for any repatriations that are made from UAE. And then once the investor or the shareholder receives that, it will be taxable in India as per the applicable corporate tax or the individual slab rates. And if there are any expenses, it will be taxed on net and not gross basis. So that's the main thing. Entire gross amount can be repatriated from UAE back to India since there is no withholding. So this is on the repatriation option. Uh, I will. These are the overall considerations that we have to bear in mind. Just to sum up, we have started on what are the various legal structures. Then, are there any location specific choices which are available to business? And then, what are various compliances that we have to bear in mind? What are investment and repatriation options, and how different are they from when compared to India jurisdictions? Is what is covered. Just that all the investors or businesses bear this in mind while you are consultant or a business setup manager takes care of all this. This kind of helps you to factor in while starting your business in UAE. I will take up questions now if you have any questions before giving a concluding note on this.
Hi, Pranit. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, assuming a company, say we are setting up in UAE, like a bootstrap company
yeah,
where we funded ourselves. Okay.
yeah.
So, my question is if we take that bootstrap company and set up a new legal entity in UAE, and if I wanted to grow it further, my question is how open the economy in terms of banks and financial institutions in funding, in terms of giving loans to expand its business, whether they discriminate that the owner of that new entity is not a UAE resident, and therefore is there any partialities or differences that has been given?
Nice question, Ruben. One thing, as I said, be it businesses or people who are there in UAE, there is no partiality, at least for doing businesses or working in UAE from the government or the department standpoint. Okay, everyone is treated alike there, unless it is to do with any local investments or properties or any other things. But that's the reason it is able to attract all the multinationals and professionals and expats from all over the world into UAE. Coming to funding and the ease of doing business standpoint, or even the financial aid that comes from the banks, there is no discrimination again on who is the ultimate investors. Is it local or non-local? There is no that kind of look-through approach while granting the loan. Only from a documentation standpoint, it is a corporate guarantee is a minimum documentation that they ask you. And obviously, when you are since UAE sees most of the startups or new entities which are being set up, which don't have any kind of financial record or credit rating, there is no discrimination on that front also, be it a well-grown business or a newly set up startup or a bootstrap company. There is no discrimination on that. Only your interest rate might vary based on the credibility, but everyone is treated alike in UAE. Hope I've answered your question, Ruben.
Yes, Pranit. Thank you.
There is one question. If a global company want to set up a back office to outsource their admin work, do you think UAE is a better choice than India? I think you've asked a perfect question to a right person. This is what I do, being a transpricing expert. When you talk about back offices, one of the important aspect is the human capital and the cost which is involved. While overall, what do you say, the compliance or the other operational costs are secondary aspects. Since the resource aspect is the main thing, which prevails over all the other tax considerations. When you think about India and UAE, India has talent pool which is available at cheaper cost, even in terms of volume. If you talk about our existing setup, we have a huge back office in India when compared to main operating guys in UAE. If you are speaking about only back office, which are mostly resource driven setups, obviously the people intensive or the knowledge intensive jurisdictions like India is preferred over UAE. But if you think of client facing or trading hubs or headquarters, definitely UAE is a very good jurisdiction because it's a good common centralized location for having all the expats from all the locations be seated in terms of headquarter businesses or main key holding structures or trading hubs in the UAE. So that's the main thing. I think hope I have answered your question, Piyush.
Hello.
Any other
Yeah.
questions? Yeah.
Am I audible, Pranay?
Yeah, you are audible. Go ahead.
In case of free zone, is this
Yeah.
like the way we saw the advertisements now on the digital media that we can open the company from foreign territory itself? Do we need to have any single visa or Emirates ID mandatory for the person who is opening company in free zone, or it can be completely
Yeah.
done from the outside the country?
Yeah. I will let Vamsi to answer that question. Vamsi, if you can throw some light. Can you just repeat that question? We have Vamsi back. Yeah.
Yeah, so in case a free zone company, as it is digitally advertised, it can be open from out of India or anywhere from out of UAE. Do the owner or in the form of like free zone company LLC, they need to visit at least once to the UAE to open the free zone or to have one visa at least an Emirates ID mandatory for running the free zone company or establishing free zone company and then thereafter opening the bank account?
Yeah, actually, without visiting UAE, also you can open a company in free zones. Most of the free zones are allowed this. But to operate your business or to operate your bank account, you need to have one resident there. So resident means any resident in UAE, you can give authority to him by giving a power of attorney as a manager to operate your company and bank account, and you can manage in that way.
Okay, so in that case, only license fees will be applicable in the free zone case. Rest sponsorship to the resident person who is holding the residency in the UAE. Is this required national of the UAE or any person who is having residence visa in the UAE can operate the account on behalf of this power of attorney?
Any resident you can choose. Yeah, they're not required local agent.
Okay. And in case of mainland, it
I
is
think,
mandatory, no, to have at least one visa.
Yes, in case of mainland, it is mandatory to have a investor to be visit to UAE, and they'll have a proper visa, and they have to stay till get the process visa application, and they have to do all the process by them with visa.
It is always
I think we have one
difficult
more. Yeah.
while
Go
opening
ahead. Go
the
ahead.
comes to the bank account opening in case of like UAE. So how is it difficult for the free zone companies to open the bank account into the UAE? As I see it, we always get some kind of like problems from the clients that opening of the bank account is always a challenge in case of UAE.
Yeah, because in free zones, most of the free zones they don't have offices. It's one man companies. That is why banks will give some difficulties while opening the bank account. So if you have proper office and proper manpower in your free zone, if you provide the proper information to the bank, definitely they will give a bank account. So most of the free zones they'll have flexi desk. That is why banks will give some. I mean, it will be a little challenging compared to mainland.
Okay, so in that case, this kind of situation is not ideal from city angle also, no, for having the flexi desk, not having the office and then opening the free zone companies because it may not be eligible as a qualifying free zone then.
It's not about qualifying free zone and all. So to open a bank account, yeah, as I mentioned, they'll see the presence of the company. If you have a flexi desk, definitely you don't have the presence. Just a lease agreement will have. That is why it will become a little challenging while opening the bank account. To qualify as a qualified free zone, so there are some other criteria that Pranith will explain clearly regarding this.
See, there are two considerations here. What Vamsi is saying is the minimum requirements for setting up a shop in free zone. As you rightly said, to get that 0% beneficial CT rate, it should fulfill one of the main criteria, which is a substance test, which has again three criteria to be fulfilled. One is you should have people there in free zone in terms of employees, and then you should have asset base, and then you should have minimum reasonable operational expenses that are being incurred in free zone entity. So all these are from a corporate tax standpoint to get that beneficial 0% rate. But to set up an entity with bare minimum documentation and requirements around office space,
Mm.
still that there is a possibility, as Vamsi explained.
Hi Praneeth,
I-
what is the procedure to bring funds legally from India to UAE bank account for business purpose?
So as I said, the investment routes are governed by the RBI and FEMA regulations. You can do both equity as well as debt funding. Apart from that, you can do advancing or project financing. For all the three things, there are caps in terms of volumes or to what extent you can pump in money through bank routes. There is a 400% of the Indian entity's net worth, which is a cap, and then there is LRS, based on whether it's a overseas direct investments or overseas portfolio investment. The quantum is 250K dollars per year. So we should see those thresholds which are there, which is again tied to the Indian entity financials before thinking of any investments into UAE.
Is it
I
applicable
think,
for companies or for individuals also the same thing will be applicable?
yeah.
For both it is applicable. For even if individual wants to
We are,
bring the
they
fund.
are governed by these FEMA regulations. Even if it is so say, and if an individual want to buy a property in UAE, okay, so it will be an overseas portfolio investment. There is a cap of $250,000 per year. So whoever it is, we have to take care of these thresholds and compliances in terms of dealing this through your AD bankers.
But does UAE has any restrictions to bring the funds into bank account the same way?
Into UAE or from UAE to India?
Into UAE government has any
See,
restrictions?
UAE as such, again, as I said, all these VAT corporate tax regulations, even the anti-money laundering regulations, or oversee these bank transactions, whether it's investments or transactions with other jurisdictions. There are various regulations which have a lens on your transactions. You can't do left and right. Obviously, all the investments, repatriations, and even the intra-group transactions are being governed by these regulations. And AML is one thing that we should be more aware of in such situations, which is anti-money laundering. So we can't see it as a very free jurisdictions to do whatever we want. Yeah, it's a properly governed jurisdiction, like in India.
Okay.
But there
Okay.
are no
Thank you.
restrictions on thresholds in terms of volumes you want to handle. Yeah. Once you are compliant with overall the regulations.
Okay. Thank you, Pramit.
Yeah,
Vamsi, there is a
Pradeep.
question for you. Can you throw some light on ease of opening a bank account by companies and individuals in UAE? I think they want to understand how easy in terms of timeline and documentation to open a bank account, which will answer the current question also. Yeah.
Yeah. Because of the AML compliances and other regular central bank regulations, opening up a corporate account nowadays it will become a little challenging there in UAE. But yeah, if you have all proper documents, definitely you will get the bank account. But it will take some time. Uh, if you go with the digital banks, so they'll open bank for you, I mean bank account for you in a week time. So most of the cases, again, it depends upon the activity and business you're from. If you go with the typical normal banks, they will take 15 to 30 working days to open a bank account. So if it is it depends upon the nationality and the activity you're doing research. Yeah.
Thanks, Vamsi. There is one question from Shiva. He says whether JAPSA or any other free zone has any additional benefit of 50 years tax benefit. So let me answer this on a wider front. See, all the jurisdictions like UAE, which has this free zone concept, which gives a 0% beneficial tax rate, as well as KSA or India, which KSA the other day has promised 30 years 0% tax relief for headquarter for luring in the headquarter or parent entities into Saudi Arabia. One thing I want to say is there is a concept called global minimum tax, which is minimum 15% tax across all the jurisdictions who are part of that inclusive framework. Mostly all the major jurisdictions are part of it. Even UAE, they have promised or affirmed that eventually, for at least for, see, this I'm talking from large MNEs or corporation standpoint, they have promised to maintain a 15% minimum corporate tax rate. Now, if you are a large business, then 0%, 9% thing will eventually be topped up to 15%. If not the actual difference, at least there will be 3 to 6% incremental tax. Now, speaking from the SMEs or the small businesses standpoint, uh, all the free zones, as I said, don't have unilateral right to fix the corporate tax rate, okay, on their own, because everything is all the emirates are summed up and governed by a federal tax authority, FTA, which is a centralized uh, a governing body for regulating the corporate tax rate. Now everything is governed by the corporate tax law, which gives you only two options, either 0% or 9%. 0% is only to free zones. The two who are fulfilling certain conditions that I have outlined there. There is nothing beyond the 0%, 9% that free zones like Zavza or any other free zone, they themselves can unilaterally give as a promise to the investors and businesses, because those unilateral actions are overridden by the overall centralized corporate tax law, which is introduced last year. So that's the an
Yeah,
answer to the question. Yeah.
yeah, Praneeth, yeah, Shiva speaking. So actually, we want to set up one company manufacturing unit. So we
Yeah.
approached Jafja, Jablali Port, Hamria Port, Ras al Khaimah, and Fujairah Port.
Understood.
Pre-zones. But compared to all other ports, this only Jabja
Hmm.
Hamria port, even director level people saying that we have 50 years tax benefit, there is no corporate tax. But as per my understanding, only the complying the conditions, six conditions, then only we it comes to 0%. So why
You are right.
these two? Yeah, why these two persons, Jabal Ali and Hamria, they are specifically pointing out strongly we have 50 years tax benefit. They are
Sir,
telling that is an additional advantage to keep the company in their free zones.
There are two aspects in this. One is the corporate tax regulation or compliance, which gives 0%, 9%, subject to fulfillment of conditions, as you explained. One of the key benefit of all these free zones is they have free zone specific tax incentives, okay, which they come up with to lure the investors into their free zone. There could be those incentives which are acting like a set off against this corporate tax. So those tax incentives and other benefits these free zones are offering are specific to these free zones, that those are outside the corporate tax regime, whatever incentives they are providing with. And even there, wherever they are providing those specific incentives, they have their own set of additional regulations or compliances that these free zone entities have to comply with in terms of, say, as a bare minimum, they have to maintain audited financials and file them like how we file in India with the MCA. And there are again certain additional documentation requirements on annual basis, just to make sure that the conditions based on which these incentives are given are fulfilled on year basis. So if they have promised or offered you something, there could be something which are free zone specific. Those are not connected to the corporate tax. Those are specific tax incentives for that free zones. Yeah.
Okay, that means it is not related to corporate tax. You
Yeah,
mean?
corporate tax, there is nothing within the ambit of corporate tax wherein, say, Zabza or any other free zone have their own set of rates. It's common for all. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I think earlier discussed about the visa point. If
Yeah.
now if I want to set up one company in Fujairah free zone, if
Yeah.
one person act as a manager in the trade license, that person has to be here.
Sir, I think once you answered that question,
Yeah.
just to reiterate again, if it is a free zone, you can do it through an agent by giving a power of attorney. But if it is a mainland, you should have at least one visa, and that visa need not be of UAE national. It could be of any national, right, Vansi?
Actually, in some free zones, without visiting UAE also you can open a company, but to operate the business and to operate the bank account so you should have at least one visa. So that visa means the resident UAE visa. So you can give a visa from your company by sponsoring them, or you can take other resident from UAE and give a power of attorney to operate the company and other operations. In that way, you can do it. But in mainland, since the investor should visit at least once to UAE to get the ID from the immigration department. With that ID, they will open a company on your name, I mean, investor's name.
Okay.
Thank you. Sir, any other follow-up questions on this? Otherwise,
Any
we'll take up other
any
questions.
minimum period of stay for the mainland for the resident visa person? Like he has to stay in UAE for this much period. At least I know once in a 6 month he has to visit, but any specific time dates limit is it there for his to stay in UAE?
Yeah, for first to open a visa, you need to get the work permit or entry permit from the sponsoring company. Once you get the
Hmm.
entry permit, you have to visit the UAE. So after you visiting UAE, you need to give your medicals and Emirates ID done. That will take 3 to 4 working days. After that, again, it will take 3 to 4 working days to get the visa. Once your visa is issued, then you can travel back to other countries, I mean, from UAE. Once you get the visa, once in 6 months, you have to visit UAE. Otherwise, your visa will be in hold or cancelled.
Okay. So it is not like that you have to stay for 3 months or 4 months in a financial year in the UAE if you open the mainland. Like you have to travel once in a 6 months. That is the only condition, correct?
Yeah, it's condition, it's point of it's immigration point of view, like to visa active, you have to visit at least once in 6 months.
Okay. Any other
Otherwise, there is no
rules
issue
for
with your life.
yeah? Any other rules for minimum residence in UAE for the uh, partner who is open the LLC in the mainland?
So, if it is investor visa, they can allow till 1 year actually, not 6 months. If it is other visas, manager visa or other employee visas, you have to visit at least once in a 6 months.
Okay.
There is no other requirements to, I mean, active your visa. So only requirement is you have to visit at least once in a year for the investors, uh, twice, I mean, once in 6 months for the employee or a manager visas.
Okay. Thank you. That's so much
I
clear.
think, yeah. Sir, we'll take your follow-up questions offline. There are two more questions which we'll answer and conclude the session. One of the question is on costing standpoint. Vamsi, is there how much is your approximate costing for setting up a entity in free zone or mainland, and is it more or less the same? What are the conditions? I think before Vamsi answers this, costing is not a major criteria which we have to be more worried about while setting up an entity in UAE, because there are a whole lot of other positive considerations which will definitely lure you into the UAE. Uh, uh, Vamsi, what is the overall costing? I could say it's around 20,000 to 30,000 dirhams, and various other specifics will come into play, which will change that cost. Yeah, Vamsi, on the costing front.
Yeah, if we discuss about the costing point of view, so free zones will cost less compared to the mainland. Most of the free zones, not other fenced free zones. In mainland, cost will be depend upon the activity what we have chosen and the shareholders, number of shareholders, and the share capital amount, what you have mentioned in our MOA. These are the all the criteria to get the payment voucher. Payment voucher is a receipt from the department that we have to pay as a license fees. So it is around 20,000 get as a cost to open a business license for the normal activities. If you choose for general trading or other oil related activities, then cost will be more. If you choose the real estate activity, the cost will be more. For normal service sector or other IT related activities, yeah, it will be 20 to 25,000.
I think more or less what
Yeah.
it will cost in India. I think we have one last question, which will help us to conclude this session. Why we have to reach out to SBC Spectrum or Get Company to start the business or help them in complaints and all. Just to reiterate that again, as I said, we are kind of one-stop shop for all the compliances or registrations requirement in UAE. Vamsi, I forced Vamsi to take up this session because for last 10 years he has been, even before any of these regulations have started, be it CT, VAT, ESR, he has been working with all the investors and businesses for setting up their entities in UAE, be it in free zone or mainland, whatever emirate you can name, and all the free zones. So he has hands-on experience. One-stop shop is one thing. Second thing is having hands-on experience will help all of us to do that hand-holding right from collating the required documentation for setting up the entity, advising you on how you want to set up the entity in terms of structuring, corporate tax, advisory, and then once you set up an entity, how we can assist you with overall compliances. Our entity Spectrum has been there for last 10 years, aiding companies on overall end-to-end compliances as well as auditing requirements. That is our main USP to put in. One is one-stop shop. Second is you'll get hand-holding from start to end. Third is we have expert teams who are working there on ground for last 2 decades, and we have experts from all the domains having their experiences drawn from big fours and top consulting firms, even industries put together. So with this we want to conclude our session. Thanks everyone for joining in. We will share Vamsi's and mine email ID and phone number with you guys, since we have your email IDs and phone numbers, or you can take a picture here. You can ping or reach out to Vamsi. He is more free when he's off webinar, so you can ask how many other questions you have, and he'll be happy to answer. Thank you, guys. Vamsi, anything to say?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for joining
Thank you so
this
much,
session.
Pramit and Vamsi. Really informative session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you have any questions or any information required, just message me or WhatsApp me or call me or email me. Definitely will be available anytime whenever you have questions. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Spectrum team, for your valuable session.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. We'll come up with more sessions in coming months. Thank you.